Thank you for joining us. My name is Lisa Ammon, and I serve as president of the Louisville Forum. We meet the second Wednesday of every month at Vincenzo's Restaurant. The Louisville Forum is a nonpartisan public issues group founded in 1984. The Forum hosts debates and discussions of contemporary and sometimes controversial policy issues that affect the greater Louisville community. Although we may take up issues that have a national interest, we try to highlight the local perspective from the Louisville community. For more information on the Louisville Forum or programs or to make reservations, please visit our website at louisvilleforum.org. And now for our topic today. The New York artist Hans Haack was quoted as saying, "Museums are managers of consciousness. They give us an interpretation of history, of how to view the world and locate ourselves in it." The Speed Art Museum has undergone a 3.5-year, $65 million renovation to be a cultural center for Louisville, with modern architecture, expanded programming, and exhibits, as well as outdoor spaces. The Speed Art Museum encompasses 220,000 square feet. That includes a 60,000 square foot glass and metal building to the north that invites passersby to take a look inside and see what the museum has to offer. The south building boasts a state-of-the-art cinema that will introduce movies and host discussions. The new space will house contemporary artwork, special exhibitions, and expand the space for the Kentucky Gallery. The Speed is seeking to make this a place for everyone, a place that will spark imagination, ignite creativity, and educate the community. The museum opens to the public on Saturday, March 12th at 10 a.m. Today we will hear about the past, present, and future, and we'll get up to speed with a behind-the-scenes look at our new museum. Today we're proud to have two panelists, Roger Cude and Ghislain. First, Roger Cude. He's Enterprise Vice President, Talent Organization Development, and with Humana, and a board member of the Speed Art Museum. Roger joined Humana in September of 2013 to lead the talent and organization development functions. He currently has responsibility for talent, organization development, inclusion and diversity, performance management, association engagement, and talent acquisition. Roger is also a member of Humana's Inclusion and Diversity Council. Before joining Humana, Roger served as Senior Vice President, Global Talent Management for Walmart. In this role, he was responsible for executive development, leadership university, executive succession planning, officer selection, and corporate learning services. Roger has also held positions as Senior Vice President, Learning and Leadership Development at Bank of America, and as Vice President of Human Resources for Williams Incorporated. Cude has served on boards of directors for the National Alliance of Business, National Employee Leadership Council, and the Center for Nonprofit Management. We would like to welcome Roger and give him an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for welcoming me. After that introduction, I realize why I'm tired most days. It's a pleasure to be here, and as Lisa said, that I'm relatively new to the Louisville community. I've been here now about 2.5 years, and it's great to be here, and it's a great place to live and to be a member of the community. And I've had the opportunity to get very engaged in the community since I've been here, and I really appreciate that. And people ask me, they say, well, you know, that we know from other places, they say, well, how's Louisville? How have you assimilated into the community? And I said, well, it's great because the job's going great and being in the community is growing very well. And I said, and when you want to get involved, be careful what you ask for, because people will welcome you with open arms and get you involved very quickly. So I do serve as the chair of the Business Leaders for Education as part of GLI and on the Board of Trustees at Speed, and I'm very honored to do that. I'm just going to say a few words, and I'm going to turn it over to the person who you're really here to listen to, and that's Ghislain, to talk to you about the vibrance and the excitement of what's going on at Speed and the things that are coming up. And so I won't stand in the way of that. But I do want to make a few comments very briefly about Speed, but about some concepts that I want you to think about in terms of how it applies to Speed, but how it applies to other things in the community, but also other areas that you might be involved in. But before I do that, just since its founding in 1925 and the opening of doors in 1927, Speed has been sustained by passionate leaders, donors, and others for the past 90 years. It's Kentucky's oldest and largest art museum, which has expanded greatly, so is now significantly the largest art museum, supported entirely by donations and endowments, grants, and operating revenue. There have been several renovations, as you know. I'm not telling many of you anything new. There have been several renovations to Speed over the years to accommodate expansion and growth. It's been a history of change that has created momentum for the museum and the community. The latest renovation is one of the most significant in its history, and I might say is fairly significant risk to the museum that is creating a momentum of its own and contributing to momentum of the entire region. Before I sit down and let you hear from Ghislain, I want to say a couple things about change and momentum. So those are kind of a couple things I want you to think about: change and momentum around two very relevant topics that as we discuss Speed and also the community. When it comes to change, you know, I have this favorite phrase: when it comes to change, especially now, there is no neutral. You're either moving forward or you're falling behind. So when we think about the pace of change that's going on in our societies today, there is no neutral. You're either going forward or you're going backward. People often refer to change in relationship to change management. But at our company, at Humana, we prefer to think about change leadership. There's a subtle but a clear distinction between managing versus leading. The former tends to be more reactive and a little bit narrow in scope, while the latter tends to be much more proactive and broader in scope. Change, it means that you're altering a future course. And that means for our region, for our local groups, companies, communities, and for all of us as individuals. As community members and leaders, we can choose to be more or less deliberate about that. You know, there are bumper stickers around change, and change happens. But are we deliberate around that change, or are we merely reacting to that? Strong leaders are much more intentional about that in terms of the creating a vision for the future course, aligning hearts and minds around that, and then aligning resources to really make it happen. There's a great quote that's often repeated, that change is good. And if you don't believe that, just go back and look at your high school picture. And then you'll be a convert. There are four elements of change really quickly that I want to just highlight as we think about the change and the way change is happening, and what the impact is. And if you think about it, it really impacts all of us, and certainly the Speed Museum. One is there's a faster pace of innovation. The pace of change is increasing. In a recent study suggested 30 years ago that there was a generation change about every 10 years. And generation change means that the minds and the way people think about the world is fundamentally different. And so 30 years ago, they considered a generation change about 10 years. You know what it is today? It's about 4 years. So if you think about it, 19-year-olds are thinking very differently and thinking about the world very differently than 15-year-olds. And so the pace of change is increasing so fast that the generations and what we define as a generation that thinks uniquely about the world is significantly compressed. The other thing is about the speed and the paradox of change. Speed is certainly, as Lisa mentioned, about preserving the cultural richness of who we are and the visual art, and while appealing to all generations that are changing the frames of reference and that value every 4 years. So that's a tremendous responsibility and a tremendous opportunity. The second piece is around transparency. So we talked about the pace of change, but transparency, the changes that are coming today are altering the transparency that companies and institutions have with its citizens. Lines are becoming constantly blurred between information that goes viral in seconds and the ways that that transparency gets created. And it's not always the truth, but it's transparency. And so we think about the technology. The other one is around customer engagement. Ghislain will talk about this, but as the change continues to quicken, places like speed are increasingly competing for share of mind, share of time, and share of wallet. And so as we think about that, we have to create the experience at speed that competes in a society where people are just constantly on the go. And how do we take time to take time with generations and kids and grandparents to have conversations around art and around the things that are important to us. People expect to be engaged by the experience. Our expectations are increasing. We need to be thinking about every person that we touch at speed that is saying to themselves, engage me, I dare you. And that's how we need to think about that. Every person that walks through that door is expecting to be engaged at some level. And so we need to think about that as we serve them and serve the guests. And the final one is around digital technologies. All of you are aware of that. And everyone that has a smartphone, the latest study is that you'll look at that smartphone on average about 150 times a day. That's about 10 times an hour, or 6 times an hour, about once every 10 minutes. And I'm watching you closely, so if you look at it, I'm going to call you out. But it's up to us as we think about that pace of change to chart the course of the future. And the Speed Museum is a critical piece of that in our community and helps to define our community. A couple of comments about momentum, and then Lisa's going to give me the hook, and I'll sit down. The headline this morning that Louisville's in the top 10 in the country by Site Selection Magazine for business development. Dallas is number 1, but we're in good company. Chicago, etc. Louisville is ahead of Charlotte and other cities for business development and business investment in the last year. Local schools and education are starting to turn a corner. I think they're hitting an inflection point. The new Kentucky Commissioner of Education, Dr. Stephen Pruitt, has brought some new ideas to the superintendent, the school systems. I'm glad to see the schools represented here, bringing some great change to the education system, then bringing together ideas to solve key issues that we have in our community. We're quickly coming to an inflection point on that and improving the educational focus and resources. The Mayor's Cradle to Career program has got some traction, and we're seeing some results there. Several companies like ours are expanding and growing. You're seeing business investment. You're seeing hotels built downtown. That's momentum. That's what we're calling momentum in the community. Unemployment's at 4.4%. That's much lower than the national average and much lower than communities that we compare ourselves to. We're simultaneously, as companies in the community, cooperating on education and other really important initiatives to grow the community. But at the same time, we're competing for a very limited spectrum of talent, particularly in critical areas around IT and other areas. We're also importing talent in key skill areas. And things like the arts community and the vibrance of the community and the momentum is a big part of the community, a big part of the recruiting that we do. And we're also re-recruiting talent. You may know that. We're re-recruiting talent who grew up here, went to school, left, and we're asking them to come back. And you know what? When they start to build families and so forth, they want to come back to Louisville. They want to come back to the community and the quality of life that they grew up in. When I attend meetings such as this one, or talk to leaders outside the community, they often talk about the fact that Louisville is unique in the sense that many leaders put aside differences and differences of opinion to come together on community-wide issues. And there are multiple signs around that. I won't go into that for the sake of time. But it's created a unique environment for growth. And I think Ghislain has seen that as he's pulled together very, very diverse groups to help the speed renovation happen. The expansion of speed is a very powerful product and symbol of that working together to create something special. It required the leadership, alignment of what it could be, and certainly the resources to make it happen. And as you know, a major feature of the region that we talk about are talented people and the quality of life. There are very many talented people who live here because they choose to live here. Not because they have to, it's because they choose to live here. And there are times we often joke when we drag executives kicking and screaming into Louisville because they don't know the place, and they say, why? Why would I come here? Why would I move my family here? And it's not too long after that we ask them to go to another area of our business, and we have to drag them kicking and screaming out of Louisville because they want to stay here. One great leader that we didn't recruit, but is here, and a visionary who lives here because he chooses to live here, is Ghislain. I've worked with him for nearly a year and a half, and I've watched him work tirelessly to create a breathtaking place that invites the world and diverse audiences to experience the power of creativity. And if you haven't been, as they're starting to do the openings, and the opening and the Ghislain will talk about, I invite you to definitely be there this weekend. You'll hear more about that. And I know that he's harnessed the power of change and momentum into the arts to quickly become a critical element in this community that will chart the future of the city, the region, and certainly all of us. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to sit down and let the guest of honor speak. So thanks.
Right, before I introduce Ghislain, I wanted to make you aware that there are questionnaires on your table. If you have any questions for the panelists today, please write them down, and one of our two board members, Steve Hagg and Ed Schatt, they'll come around and get those from you. Ghislain Dumier is a native of France and studied at the Sorbonne in Paris, where he received his DEA in history and license of art history. He became a specialist in 18th century furniture for Sotheby's of London and later transferred to Sotheby's of New York. To further his education, he studied at the Gemological Institute of America and became the director of the jewelry department at Christie's of Los Angeles, overseeing the West Coast and South America. In 2001, he transferred to Christie's in Geneva and was in charge of international clients from Europe and South America. During an 18-month sabbatical in Guatemala, he founded the Alex Donation Fund for underprivileged children in Guatemala. Shortly thereafter, he was hired by the Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco as assistant director in charge of the opening of the new DeYoung Museum located in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. In 2007, Ghislain joined the University of Oklahoma as the Saxon director of the Fred Jones Jr. Museum of Art. During his 6-year tenure at the Fred Jones Museum of Art, Dumier doubled attendance, led a successful $15 million campaign, and spearheaded the development and management of the museum's new 20,000 square foot Stewart Wing, which doubled the museum's exhibition space. Dumier arrived in Louisville in June of 2013, and we're happy to have him here today.
Right. Usually I don't like mic. I like to speak without mic, but I guess I have to do that because you're recording. All right. I have to say I was not planning to do that, but your quote is very interesting. Museum are manager of consciousness. They give us an interpretation of history, of how to view the world and look at ourselves in it. Never heard that quote, but that's very interesting. Could I keep it? Because I really, it's not necessarily the subject of my talk, but there's a lot of things very interesting there. All right, thank you, Roger. Your presentation instruction, I have to say, yes, beware when you say you have some time for the community and you're available, because he said that, and therefore he's been living and breathing and sleeping at the speed and helping us to do everything we needed. And so, yes, I always look for talent and I make them work. So, but it's been, this is the concept of a board of trustees. In the case we have two boards, the board of governor, and I will talk to you in a second, has been an unbelievable experience for us to succeed or to do what we wanted to do. I'm going to make it brief on the presentation of the speed because you know so much more about that. But yes, what we've been trying to do, okay, let me go back very quickly. It's a technically 7 years story when 7 years ago the trustees of the Speed realized that it was time for changes. The Speed was doing well. There were Monet. The board was very traditional, not necessarily diversified, and very fine. But they realized we were not able to continue this way. So they made the decision to really look into making the museum welcoming and so on. On the time, there were 5 elements they needed. We needed a space for contemporary art, because if you don't collect contemporary art, you're technically dead. For an institution, I mean. If you also Kentucky, we need and we represent the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and we had no real space for that. Number 3, we wanted a space for temporary exhibition, special exhibition when you bring art from around the world. Number 4, we needed a space to do entertainment and raising funding, what we call rental facility, because on the time, the former Speed, you had to move the art every time you were doing a party, and which is completely forbidden by museum standard, by the way. And then the 5th one was not necessarily a priority, but become an unbelievable opportunity, was creating a state-of-the-art theater, cinema. So this was the time 7 years ago. They found the architect. My predecessor, Charles Venable, was able to raise most of the fund, and then he left, and the construction was happening. In fact, when I arrived 2.5 years ago, we started construction. When I arrived, the concept was there, the strategy was there, and so on, but the soul or the vision internally was not there, and it was up to me to do that while I was still raising money. It was a tricky time because we were close, and as you know, we decided to open that space in Nulu, and that's maybe be the best mistake ever we haven't done. It was considered to be a mistake by general standard to close a museum, and when you do construction, you should always keep something. And by moving in Nulu and getting access to a demographic we never had, we suddenly became a hip place where a lot of the crowd of the 20 and less or up came and really interact with us. And suddenly we've been learning and really understanding what we were not doing well and so on. So one of the things I've been doing, and I do every place I move, and I did move a lot in my life, is a best way to understand a community is first to dive into the public school system. And why? Because the public school system, you see the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'm sorry to say so, some of you are here, in a way of not necessarily you, but how we don't do the thing the right way for you. So, and we learn a lot. We were obviously not that connected with the public school system, specifically Title I, which has a priority for me. So I went to see the superintendent. She said, you do whatever you want. Don't ask me for money. As long as you pay for it, you do what you want. I said, okay, fine. So, kind of some common languages of the public institution in general. But so I said, okay, fine. So we had blessing and so on, but we started doing the art detective. While we were closed, we were bringing art into the public school system. Maybe some of you had some of a visit, I don't know. But for the last, we started with 50 students or kids the first semester. Now we have 6,000 every semester, completely for free, by the way. So we bring art, we talk to them, we do experiences like the CS side of art. That program gave us so much goodwill from the community, but also learning from the community what we were not doing well and so on. And that started a complete conversation with the board about if we want to be meaningful, yes, you could build a $60 million building, but if we're not meaningful for the community, it will be empty. There will be no soul. There will be no meaning. Therefore, we need to change first. And when I say we, and I could have been fired that day, Roger was not on the board that day, that he was not there on the board. It was my second board meeting. I look around the table, there were 30 board members, 25 men, only 5 women, 1 African American, 1 Jewish. Well, I say, I'm sorry, that's not representing the community at all. So we need to do something about that. And honestly, I could have been fired that day, politely but surely. But anyway, they say, okay, what do you want to do? So we talk with some other board member, and we say, well, why don't we make an assessment of who we are? So every trustee fill their own profile. I am so-and-so, I do that, I could bring that, this is my expertise, and so on. Then in the meantime, we created a matrix with all the requirements a non-for-profit need to have. Age, diversity, gender, experience, professional background, etc., etc. It's a long, long matrix. So I also have to explain to you that we have 2 boards, and that's very important. The Board of Trustees, the traditional one, they are fiduciary responsible. Technically, if we bankrupt, they pay. sorry, you know that? Okay. Anyway, but then we have the Board of Governors, which was created by my predecessor, but not necessarily completely really used at the main capacity. The Board of Governors is a large board. We could be up to 90. And they are, in my mind, ambassador, and so they are very kind of younger group, if you want, and they're becoming a talent of a pool of talent, and for us to find people who could be then board of trustee. So that was the idea, but for me, I use that as a tool. When I arrived, there were only 27 of them, and I say, if we want to really fill the matrix the way we want with all the diversity, this is where we could get new board member, and then we have the diversity on the Board of Governors, and therefore within 3 years, we're going to have a completely different Board of Trustee. So we started that 2 years ago. We had them filling their own file also. And then every year when we have application for candidate for the Board of Trustee or the Board of Governors specifically, we only picked up the one who fulfill the empty box in the matrix. So technically, I'm not going to take another, no offense for lawyer, okay? But I already got 3 or 4 lawyers. I'm not going to take another lawyer because I got enough, but I don't have a public servant. I don't have a teacher. I don't have an artist. So like that, we could officially select what type of people we want and look actively for what we want. We did that for the last 2 years. Now we have 69 Board of Governors, and we have only 2 empty, well, even empty, but 2 boxes which are not completely fulfilled. Native American, which is slightly difficult here, and Hispanic, which is a challenge for me right now, and I'm always looking for talented Hispanic. All the rest of the diversity of the spectrum is on the Board of Governors. For the Board of Trustee, it will take one other round of election because it's only every 5 per year. So next year, the Board of Trustee will be already a third different when I arrive, with the process everybody accepted. Then there's one last point, money. Of course, you have to pay when you're on the Board of Trustee and Board of Governors. Well, that's defined the purposes. If you're a public servant, a nurse, you cannot pay. The rate are not, the fee are not that expensive, but we created a diversity fund for the Board of Governors and Board of Trustee, self-sponsored by trustee and private people, and some bank have been matching. So now I've got enough money on both boards. When I have a candidate very attractive for me, who cannot pay one of the fee, they will give whatever they could give, and we sponsor the rest. It's a discrete process. They don't need to know. People don't need to know. But we have now the possibility to get people who cannot pay to be on both boards. And by that process, which has been accepted with everybody on a really genuine way, we will have a Board of Trustee and Governor diversified. Finally, we're going to be representative of the community. Sorry for that long explanation, but it explains everything we've been doing after. By the way, the New York Times is writing an article published in 2 weeks from now. They didn't give a damn about the opening of the SPID. They wanted to write about that diversity. So I was a little bit upset because I wanted to. But you can. Well, funny enough, so I wanted them to write about the building, but they say, there's plenty of building, but what you did with the Board of Diversity has never been done anywhere in the U.S. It's in Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah. Okay, get for that. Anyway. Then I need to go fast because I know I'm kind of limited on time and you have questions. But that diversity is going to give us a huge impact. The second is directly connected to Roger, who's been, by the way, extremely discreet and understated about the fact that he's a leading person in the HR. The SPID never really had a culture. We had a nice guy who was there before, but so did not really, and didn't work. And Roger said, you cannot be an institution with 100 people and not having a real HR department. So we created an ad hoc HR committee. The chair is here. And he created his own group. We hired a professional HR person. And within 4 months, we completely restructured the SPID, had a leadership team, had a complete chart and organized schedule, and did something you're going to smile, but maybe not some of my colleagues non-for-profit I know over there may not necessarily smile. We never had in 90 years merit award increase of salary. Salary was barely no raise because there's no money, or otherwise everybody got a raise. How do you want really to make the business really being rewarded on efficiency and capacity if everybody got it or nobody got it? So we did it. So within a year, we did all of these changes, had a merit award raise salary, and it's been working extremely well. And we're working, of course, on diversity and so on. I have to say, it's technically easier for me to diversify my board than diversify my staff. We've been hiring 60 new employees. It's so difficult to find diversity sometimes because when you really reach at the end 1 or 2 or 3 candidates, and you have to have some credential and things like that. It's not easy to diversify for the staff. I have to say, we're working very hard on that. The trustee is done, and we're moving on. So new trustee, new structure for the HR, the creation of the culture. Such a sexy world. It's not necessarily easy to do, and we're working on that. But why did we do that internally? Because when you're going to cross the door on Saturday, you're going to feel what's happened inside. If the staff and the trustee are really breathing and living the mission, if we're here for the whole community, if we live exactly what we say, the public will feel it, and they will make a huge difference. So do you see where I'm coming? A big, beautiful building, a lot of things going on, but internally changing in the same time. On the side of that, I was still raising money because there were not enough money to do, ramp up and so on. So we've been pretty lucky to have some support. I have to say, the support I got in the last 2 years came because of what we did in a public school. That art detective program got me more goodwill from people who never gave to the Speed because they didn't care for that stuffy institution with some painting on the wall. But when they knew what we were doing in the school, they say, okay, so that's been also helping and snowballing. And then what's happened is all the strategic plan we've been doing in the last 2 years, brainstorming with the staff about core value, brainstorming with trustees and so on. So now we have a vision, a mission, and strategic plan. And I'm going to summarize in three sentences. The new Speed, it's a 21st century museum. By the way, if I wish, I will take the word museum away, which is really a 19th century concept. I have not found a word yet. I'm looking at the young generation here, the student. If you have the cool word, let me know, because I could use that. But so I'm keeping the word Speed, right now, Speed Museum. But the 21st century museum is a hub of creativity. You will rarely hear me talking about art. I will talk about creativity and education through the art. So it's a hub of creativity. I want that place to be vibrant. I want all of you to come to really understand what's going on, to have a dialogue, and really go back home and continue thinking. Number two, it's a place for really dialogue between generations. I am an extremely strong proponent about that dialogue between generations. I mean, some of you I could see here could have grandchildren. How often do you really have an experience and a talk with your children? If you go to a movie, to a concert, to a baseball game, you cannot talk. If you're at home, usually, the TV are blasting and things like that, you don't really talk. The only two places you could really talk is maybe a stroll in a park, and this is the reason I really admire the 21st century park project with David Jones and the founder of Humana. This is one of the most unbelievable philanthropic projects I've ever seen in my life. The second place is museum. Why? Because we are neutral. We are not religious institution. We are not political. We're not even education in a way. We are neutral ground where you could have that dialogue and so on. And the new Speed you're going to see, we put the art really with kind of a visual connection, some weird association. I want you to really start really triggering, why did they do that? What's going on there? I want you to dialogue with your children and your grandchildren. I want you to have really that great experience. I don't want the Speed to be a silent place. I want you again to have that dialogue who will stimulate your creativity. You all maybe remember Art Spark, who was the place for the kids and so on. Art Spark will still be there, but completely different. It's a place for every generation. We partner with the Exploratorium in San Francisco, which is first time an art museum collaborate with them. And Art Spark is a place for dialogue between generations. The third aspect, which is very important, but guess what? We did not invent anything. That was Mrs. Speed original will. The Speed is a place to bring art from around the world, because 30 to 35% of the community in Louisville will never have the money to travel anywhere. Our duty is to bring art from around the world. Why? For the next generation, I look at you young people and the one after, to be understanding other culture from other part of the world, to understand difference and diversity, and to be more accepting of the diversity and the difference with other generation. No offense to CNN or some TV like that, but if you just leave them telling your children what is the global world, not the best place to learn. You really have to have a place where you understand that culture from around the world are extremely amazing and beautiful. And even if you're Muslim, you really have an amazing possibility of creativity and so on. And so sometimes we have a little bit of disconnection because of the mass media really hammering you with certain angle. We have an objective way. And speaking of controversy, because that's a place of dialogue here, the Speed will be a place of controversy. In 2 years from now, we're having an exhibition called What is the South? Southern Accent, the perception of the South within the art. Believe me, we're going to have some very angry people, but I don't care. This is the place we need. If we don't have a neutral place where you could have the freedom to express yourself without being sued and so on, that's where you want. A museum, in my mind, in a city dynamic like Louisville and so on, should be a dynamic place you could have a dialogue surrounded by creativity through the art. And it's not only painting, it's music, dance, and so on. So to finish on that, that weekend we're doing, by the way, it's been 10 days we're celebrating. Yesterday was public servant, today's education, so every day we have different group. But go online, please, and look at the program for Saturday, Sunday. 30 hours around the clock, non-stop. We did that in San Francisco. It was 36 hours. We had 52,000 people. Here, I'm expecting 20 to 25,000. But it's more than that. The 30 hours, look at the program and the diversity of the program. That's exactly what I want the speed to be through the mission statements, through the vision, through the way the staff will work. From, of course, music and art making and filmmaking and so on, but there will be blessing of the day with all the religion, and we're starting with Islam, by the way. There will be yoga with Ben Soleh, there will be video game competition, there will be a Buddhist monk doing a mandala. So you have everything for 30 hours, everything is free. So you do me a favor, you pass that to your friend, you bring it. We're not going to do that again, it's so much work, so just take advantage of this one. But really, that will summarize, if everything goes the way you want, it will exactly give you a real idea of what the speed and the hub of creativity should be. I don't want to do that for being, a leader and so on around the country, but my instincts start to tell me, because I've been talking to my colleagues, museum director, we may become a perfect example of how to switch a typical Beaux-Arts 1920 building into an amazing dynamic place into a community. And to finish on that, because you were talking about retaining talent, a couple of facts. Yes, close to 60 million for this expansion, close to 30 million went back to local business. So, we've been definitely supporting local business. The Speed for 90 years has been completely privately funded, not a single public money. No offense, but I find that a little bit weird, because I think money should be supporting an institution who's here for the city, but so be it. You are extremely lucky in Louisville to have, and Kentucky, by the way, because some money came from Lexington and so on, to have so many philanthropists who are supporting your city. When you think about it, 1.2 million more or less Louisville, 5 major institutions of a national or international level. Actor Theatres is internationally known. Teddy Abrams with the Louisville Orchestra, unbelievable. The ballet with Robert Curran from Australia, unbelievable. The opera with the late David Rose, we miss him. And the museum, now which is state of the art. And you can see 5 institutions like that for a city your size, mostly privately funded, by the way. Kudos for all of you in Louisville. Really, it's really amazing. And that will bring you to how do you bring talent here? Young talent who come for Humana and other company, they need to understand that. And then to finish, there's one thing which is unique. I live in 8 cities in the US in 20 years, and more than 25 cities in the world in my life. This is the first place I see where I don't have to look for the younger generation. When I mean younger, I mean the 30 to 50 years old, married with kids. Why? They all lived here, study somewhere else, live in New York, Bombay, Sydney, and so on, got married, got children, and they all came back to raise their children here. There's something in the water in Louisville. And that something is very special, is because the place is great, because you have art, culture, and so on. You want to raise your children here. And maybe I'm the first museum director who doesn't have to work hard to get that patron circle. It's my group of the youngish people. They don't give me a lot of money, but by getting invested with what I'm doing right now, in 10 years, they will be giving me a lot of money. And that is something unique to your city. So I hope, I don't know if I really went, kind of makes sense, but from the building to the culture internally, to the changes we've been doing, to what we're doing, and to the epitome this weekend, to give you an idea of what we're going to do and what to treat. Of course, I'm going to pitch. You should all be member at least. It starts at $70 a year. Come on, give me a break. And you could be anything more like Patron Circle and so on. Look at the benefit. We completely revamped all the benefit. You could have activities. You could have speaking, talk with an international speaker, traveling around the world, whatever you want. Go online. But come this weekend, it's free. Oh, and speaking of free, I'm sure you saw the press 10 days ago. One of my major issues was the fact that the museum was not free. And now, thanks to Brown Forman, at least for 5 years, every Sunday, it's not without reason we picked up Sunday, which is a family day. Every Sunday will be free for 5 years. Here we are. And I'm sure you have questions.
Thank you. And now we'll have our question portion of the meeting, and we'll start with Steve Hagg.
Could you speak to the reasoning or the thought process behind why it was necessary to close the Speed for 3 years and what that meant to the Speed Museum?
Sorry, while we close, and sorry. Yeah.
Just the thought process behind closing for 3 years.
Yeah,
And what it
well,
meant.
I will talk a little bit about it and very briefly because I was not there. It was done before my time. But funny enough, it's exactly a point. In Oklahoma, when I built the museum, I refused to close because I thought it was the kiss of death. And we did construction and we kept the museum open during construction. Funny enough, I changed my mind, and there's never too late to learn about mistake or different chances or acknowledging that you're wrong. I will now tell any of my colleagues in the country, and we have a museum director association, the 200 most important museum. We are a kind of club. We meet twice a year and we talk a lot. Well, that example I told you in Nulu and the way we reach out to a demographic we'll never seen and never have reached and so on was an amazing experience. I will really tell anybody now, if you build a museum, close it, find somewhere in town, somewhere you've never been, a different part. Not necessarily a hip place, but somewhere upcoming. Open a satellite there and be there for the moment. We did Nulu. It's done. We closed Nulu. Everybody wanted us to keep it. There were no reason to keep Nulu at this point because we need to focus. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a head up there. Of course, everybody wants us to come to Portland. I say, Portland, it's already done. It's white. Don't want to go there. We need to go deeper into the West Side in a way of really getting part of the community where we've never been. But who are we to go there? No. We need to understand from that community, in the case of the West, and I'm going to work most probably with the food port, on Mohammed Ali and 30. In fact, I'm taking my colleagues, the opera, the ballet, and so on, with an idea to do a completely versatile space where every 2 months, each of us are doing activities connected with the community, meaning we want to listen to the community to see what do they want to do with us. Not us coming with a program, them doing, okay, how could we do dance and music and opera and whatever. So there's a conversation to maybe open another space sometime over there.
To follow on that, Ghislain, we had several people who are really interested in having satellite venues. There was a lot of support mentioned for the Nulu, and another guest here today mentioned the tremendous park system we have here, and they want to know how you're going to interact with places like 21st Century Parks, the Gein Center, and things like that, and how you can bring the speed. I know you want to bring people into the speed. We have people here who want to know how you're going to bring the speed to people as well.
Sure. Well, first of all, we've been doing that for the last 2 years with this program, Art Detective, The World Together, and so on. So we're already in a community. My Department of Education, no offense again for the educator, education is a 19th century concept in my mind as a word, okay? So my Department of Education is called Learning and Community Outreach. 50% of the time inside, 50% of the time outside. So they've been in public school, they've been going around. We work with the Academy of Chani and the Western School and many other schools. So we're already there with that part of the department. Funny you mentioned the 21st Century Park, which I really again acknowledge the Jones family for the most amazing visionary philanthropist I think in this country. We talk to them because they have a great education center. We may start doing programming with them. We're not there yet. Speaking of satellite, yes, I was just telling you about the food port if it's happening. And guess what? Jim Gray, the mayor of Lexington, really is begging me to open a speed in Lexington. So I say, if you pay for it, I do it. But so when I say that, he just say, well, anyway. But we're still talking about Lexington. On the other hand, in the last 2 years, I personally, as a director, have been establishing contact with Bowling Green University, with Berea, with Owensboro, with Paducah, with Indiana. So we've been going all around, and we're already networking a lot over there. So give me a little bit of time because we need to open this building, but we're getting there.
Can I add to that?
Yes, sir.
If I could add to that, I don't know if this mic's on or not, but Ghislain also has a vision for digital technology. So there's one thing to be in physical place and have satellite in a physical place, but also doing that through technology. Many museums and other institutions around the country are really experimenting with that, but that's just going to increasingly be a way to bring art to people through technology. You won't have the physical sensation of that, but you'll also be able to experience some of that through technology.
Funny enough, you mentioned, thank you, Roger, to that, because we just created an app. You know, we have to create an app, which is funny because I may be the less technological director ever. I mean, I'm like challenged for that. I break everything, but my staff is great. And the reason I hire them because they're younger and they're dynamic and they have all the idea. But they created an app, say, visit the speed at your own speed. So which mood are you? Are you in a global mood, in a relaxed mood, in a social mood, or whatever? You pick up your mood and you go around the museum and there's iBeacon like buzzing with your phone and say, hey, this is where you have to go. Sorry. Yes, next.
I've got 3 questions that are very similar. How will the speed collaborate with, and then this is where it differs, other museums, other organizations, and then particularly the Kentucky Museum of Arts and Crafts?
Oh, is there someone from KEMAC here? Okay, first of all, very easily for the rest of the world and museum, we were part of AMD, we're part of AAM, we're part of all of this network of museum, national and international. We collaborate together for exhibition and so on. And the space we build at the speed on the top floor, 10,000 square feet of special exhibition, we're going to have an extremely exciting program of very diversified exhibition. The first one in September, by the way, it's on sneakers. Yes, shoes. Well, yes, because sneakers is part of the culture. It's a very highly professionally curated exhibition. It's going to have a huge impact on the community at large. So collaboration with museum. Now we have the space to collaborate with the Metropolitan, with the Louvre, with the British Museum. We are at that level of building facility, if you want. With other organizations in Louisville, that's been one of my things since I arrived is when I arrive in a city, above the fact of going to public school and see what's going on, I take the list of the board of all the major institutions, I take a highlighter and I highlight who we have in common between boards. Very interesting, these 5 institutions I mentioned earlier, we share 25% of the same board between each institution. And usually, directors don't talk to each other. That's kind of stupid because these are the people who gave you money. So if you do a program together and you all work together, the people who gave you money are happy. And we did that. My dream was to have the 5 of us together. It did not work at the last minute because of one institution having some union, and I won't name the institution. But therefore, we were able to work with all of the others. So Teddy Abraham and Robert Curran, by the way, will be during that weekend, this coming up weekend. They created a piece of art and a dance and music just for us. I collaborated with the opera. I collaborate a lot with actor theater and so on. So all of that is really happening. And the third institution, you say,
KMAC?
KMAC, of course, KMAC. KMAC is fantastic. As you know, we share pretty much half of the board. They are now becoming a collecting institution, and we're going to help them there. Their mission is different from us, but we are friends, and we do a lot of things together, and it will be more and more because, you know, they're doing an expansion themselves, and that's very exciting.
Right. Several people expressed gratitude for the Brown-Forman gift, but they'd like to know more what to expect on these free Sundays, what that means, how they'll work. And then a follow-up on that is what other offerings are going to be made to make the speed more accessible to people than it sometimes has been perceived to be in the past.
Sure. Well, the free Sunday is very simple. It's free. I mean, you come in and you really enjoy the whole Sunday. Sometimes some exhibition may not be free because some exhibition we may have to charge, but you will have technically access to the whole museum that Sunday afternoon for free. Because we have also the art park outside where we're going to have, site-specific commission outside. I want the public to come at picnic there, come in, come out. You know, we are partnering with Susan Exbird, Wilshire. She will be Wilshire at the speed. So it's just really a beautiful place in the afternoon for you to spend the time. Other project, and to make the museum more accessible, there's a lot of programming pending what you like. I mean, are you interested in movie? Are you interested in education? Are you interested in 18th century art? Are you interested in contemporary art? So there's plenty of way to sign up. We do also the Speed Concert series which has been going on. So there's already on website a lot of program going on. Another reason for you to be a member, because the minute you member, you technically get free for everything of the member, but it's just the diversity of that. And then we're growing and growing. We're collaborating with the Gatton Academy in Bowling Green. We're collaborating with Manual High School. We're collaborating, of course, with some of the university. I'm collaborating with the Kentucky School of Art of Design. We're collaborating with Bellarmine. Technically, the only one who has not signed an agreement with us is the University of Louisville. No comment. But I'm still working on that. It's been 90 years. I will not give up. I'm working on it. But they've been a little bit busy with other matter right now. But everybody else has been signing agreement with us to get access because I want students and so on to go there. Sorry.
Do you have a goal or a break-even point for attendance and any other metrics that you're looking at to be able to prove that this is a success?
Oh yes, I've got my CFO on my back, on my finance committee on the other back, so definitely, and I'm a very minded guy. Yes, let's forget about these first 6 months because my fiscal year is from October to October, but for October 16 is 200,000 people going through the door, not necessarily paying, but coming through the door because member and so on. So it's ambitious, but it's not too far stretched from where we were before. And then there's many other activity because we're going to have 7 exhibitions a year. So 7, private viewing and things like that. So there will be a lot of reason and programming around to really bring people in. So 200,000 people a year, plus a different line of revenue which we need to generate: the garage, the cafe, the rental facility, the cinema. Just to give you an idea, it's not an easy game. Before we closed, the endowment was paying 2/3 of the operating budget, and we were raising 1/3, or they were before my time. We're exactly flipping now because we double size, double staff, double operating budget. We did not double the endowment. Oops. So I'm working on it also. But anyway, so therefore the budget is different now. It's 1/3 paid by the endowment, 1/3 paid by what we call generated revenue, the one I just mentioned, and 1/3 by development, that means fundraising. So it's going to be busy, but doable. We have no choice. He has to work anyway. So.
I had two, I'd say more statements than questions, but two people had asked. One is if you look at the signage, they had a concern about it being too low for people, and just asked if there's a review that goes on maybe once you've been open to kind of take in some of those comments. And then secondly, there was a concern over the parking.
Yes, oh gosh, I knew that was coming, the parking. The signage, well, yes, there's one thing, but there's also, unfortunately now, there's a national and international regulation for signage into museum, and there's ADA requirement and so on. So it will have to be, we kind of boost the size of the letter and so on. We are under the requirement, but also it's more for handicap ADA, requirements. So that's pretty much what's happening. The parking, the parking. Story of my life. Well, guess what? It's been a big thing because I started with my trustee. I say, now you have to pay. They never pay the parking, the member and so on, so everybody's paying. I'm sorry, but I need the revenue. If I need the museum to be open, even my trustee, sorry, and they give me time and a lot of money. On the top of it, they pay the parking. Some of them were not happy, but I stand the ground. We have no other option. So, but there will be plenty of parking there. And for the opening weekend, by the way, which is a free weekend, the University of Louisville gave us access to every parking, so you don't have to pay. You could park anywhere. So at least that's better than nothing.
All right, on behalf of the entire Louisville Forum, we thank you for being with us today. As an expression of our appreciation, we have our signature Louisville Forum mint julep cups. For you today.
Thank you. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Derby's coming. I love Derby, by the way. That's so cool.
We also want to again express our appreciation to the trustees of the William E. Barth Foundation for the grant which makes it possible for students and administrators from Jefferson County Public Schools to attend our monthly meetings throughout the school year. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, April 13th, and reservations may be made online at louisvilleforum.org or by calling our voicemail at 329-0111. Thank you and have a great day.